Hi everyone, my name's Kat, and I've got another shiny with a story for you. This one's going to be a bit longer than my usual 5 minutes. It'll also bend my usual rule about all new material, since the second half is mostly a letter from Ingo to Emmet. It's something I wrote last year, but it's by far my favorite piece, and it's been bugging me that I don't have an audio version of it. So here you go. Really hope you enjoy. Oh, aren't they all just little cuties? A voice squealed into Indigo's head as he headed towards the Cobalt Coastlands. His plan was to speak with the noble Basculegion in the most ideal conditions possible, nighttime, by the actual ocean. Then he ran into a mob of Happiny and Chansey on the way, and all bets were off. One of the spirits in his head would not stop fawning over the little Pokémon. Indigo never realized that one could telepathically fawn so loudly. "Oh, I love Happiny," she sighed. "I had one with me all the time before we got trapped in this stupid keystone. You absolutely have to catch one of these for me, and catch a good one." Okay, he told her, pulling a Pokeball out. "Just shift the colors on one of them so I can see which you want." She did so, not in any practical sort of way, as she zeroed in on the one Happiny that was a naturally different color, and altered Indigo's vision of it until it looked the same as the others. Thankfully, Indigo was quick enough that he caught a sparkle of green just before it shifted to pink. He threw the ball, and the catch held. So now he had a Happiny in his party. A tiny, helpless baby, when he planned to ride a giant ghost fish across choppy waves in the dead of night. He glanced over his shoulder at the path he'd taken here, then at the long road ahead, and dropped his head with a sigh. Ingo and Cyllene were sitting beside each other at the dining table when their grandson walked in. The poor boy looked like a Gengar had drained his energy and then tripped him on his way home for good measure. "Thought you were headed for the coastlands," Cyllene said. "I was," Indigo replied. He was a bit short of breath, though not as fatigued as his posture suggested. "But I picked up this little one on the way, and I don't have time to stop by a camp and drop her off before sundown. Can you and Grandpa hold on to her for me?" Cyllene huffed. It was her standard reply to most questions, and those who knew her well could read her tone and expression without need for words. She was glad to help her grandson whenever he needed, and took the Pokeball before sending him on his way. Even so, she wished he had come at another time. It was hard enough getting Ingo to focus without over-energetic teenagers about.
"We should take the Pokemon out and have a look at it, don't you think?"
Ingo said once the door closed. Cyllene rolled her eyes and pointed to a table in front of him, where a few sheets of paper sat untouched beside a freshly inked pen. "You're stalling again."
"Guilty,"
Ingo replied as he took the ball from her loose grip. When he let the Pokemon out, it emerged in a swirl of smoke. Ingo and Cyllene both coughed as they fanned gray plumes out the window. When the air cleared, a green-tinted Chansey held out its tiny arms. "Chansey!" the Pokemon cried with delight.
"This is the little one he caught?"
Cyllene asked, now regretting her affirmative huff from before. The creature stood at least a foot higher than the table. Ingo cleared his throat.
"Must have grabbed an oval stone before Indigo captured it. Looks like it just evolved."
Chansey nodded happily and waddled up to Ingo's chair. Without hesitation, she lifted the egg from her pouch and placed it alongside him. He cocked his head.
"That's kind of you, but I'm not injured."
The Chansey did not seem to care and pushed the egg closer until it rolled to rest against Ingo's palm. Cyllene placed her hand on his shoulder and gave it a squeeze. Then she gently reminded him of the folklore surrounding Chansey. It was said that Chansey's eggs not only cured illness, but also delivered peace and happiness to those it shared them with. "Perhaps he's trying to heal something less physical." Ingo nodded. Whether he agreed or not, his procrastination was over. He cradled the egg in his left hand and picked up the pen in his right.
"I may open this letter with how much you're pestering me to start it."
Her face remained impassive. If that was what he needed, he had her blessing. Ingo set the pen tip to the paper and began to scratch out a greeting. His words flowed easily enough. After all, he'd had them on his mind for a long time. "Dear Winner, I feel foolish for writing this, but Cyllene insists I should. I have had many, many happy memories over my lifetime, which, at a ripe age of 94, I can only assume is coming to an end sooner rather than later. I do not have the space, nor, frankly, the stamina to write them all down, but I did want to document what I can recall of my life before Hisui. I know I spent a lot of time around someone else, and it is to that person I wish to address my letter. I regret the only things I can recall about you is that we look very much alike, I infer we are related somehow, and that you like winning more than anything else. So I've come to refer to you in my mind as Winner. If you exist somewhere in my world, I imagine you are either as old as I, or you have already passed beyond the veil through which I could hope to send a message. But perhaps you exist in a world yet to be. While the clans might not refer to their respective variations of Sinnoh as almighty anymore, the fact remains that the Diamond Clan Sinnoh does possess some control over time, as naturally does Arceus itself. Cyllene, along with several others, believe I may have come from a future time period, given my clothing when I arrived all those years ago. But also given that the world seems to be shifting ever closer to the one I recall fragments of. Jubilife Village has grown quite a bit. There were even talks of possibly building a train track there. I do believe I had a fondness for trains. At least, they don't seem as foreign to me as they do to everyone else. The conclusion being, if I was originally born in some future time, perhaps you were too. And perhaps, if that is the case, this letter can someday reach you, even if I personally cannot. Here is what I remember. We live in a city, and it is very loud, and I do not think my present self would like it very much. Too many years in a quiet village will have that effect on a person. I recall the people in the city seemed very happy there, you especially. But do go off to a quiet place once in a while. It is good to have experiences you are not used to. There is a large wheel turning in the middle of the city, which I am now taking to be a Ferris wheel. I rode one for the first time about 8 years ago. It was nice, though it did not feel at all stable. I imagine with technology advancing at the rate that it is, riding the Ferris wheel in your time is a much smoother and more pleasant experience. Give it a whirl for the both of us, if you have not done so in a while. I recall us riding the train often, possibly every day. Did we travel a lot? Perhaps that is where my fondness for trains came from. I recall that we battled together with our Pokémon often as well, sometimes on the train itself. There was always someone to have a match with. These people, so devoted to their craft. We called them Pokémon trainers, I believe. And they often traveled with multiple Pokémon, 4, 5, or even 6. Oh, and the Pokéballs! Everyone had dozens of them, and so many different kinds. Who crafts all of these for them to be so commonplace? That is still very much a mystery to me. Pokémon helped in all sorts of jobs around the city, and there was a famous trainer in our city who people would travel to come battle. She either had black or yellow hair. My memories are a bit foggy on that point. I believe she liked electric types. Perhaps you had an electric type as well? You would talk for hours and hours about your partners, and I loved listening to you. I remember that feeling very well, even if the details themselves are lost. I am very excited for the future. The world you are to be born into, a place where Pokémon and people work side by side, I don't think I can explain how strange that sounded to my clan years ago. Even now, with all I have lived through, many still think Pokémon and humans are too different to truly get along. You could say I'm the optimist among the old folks here. Ironically, I've been told I have a pessimistic face, which of course is ridiculous. I will assume you agree. I don't tell you that, Cyllene thought, but kept herself quiet so as not to break his focus. He appeared to be winding down as his pen stroke slowed. In the event I am still with you when you receive this, please do not show it to me, or treat me any differently, or take any steps you believe will alter my fate. The risk of paradoxes aside, I believe I have done a great deal of good here in this life. Much of it involves stumbling into the proper opportunity to put my skills to the best use. I do not wish to place our happiness above that greater good. I hope you can understand, and forgive me. One last thing of note. I recall that I have a partner of some kind, a fire type, or perhaps a ghost type. I know it is very beautiful, with alluring purple flames and a phantasmal presence. If it is with you, please take care of it on my behalf. Also, if I had any other partners, please make sure they know it was not my choice to forget them, as it certainly was not my choice to forget you. You have my everlasting gratitude for the years of friendship we shared. Yours sincerely, Ingo. Both Ingo's hand and spirit ached a bit as he dropped the pen and hugged the egg to his chest. A warm, soothing energy pulsed from it. Chansey nuzzled up against him, her thin, light green fur sparkling like a layer of newly sprouted grass. Ingo wasn't sure if his grandson knew this Pokémon was a rare color when he brought it in, but for the reminder of spring, a season of rebirth and new beginnings, he was exceptionally grateful. That's all for this story. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm actually on vacation this upcoming week, so the next story will be out in 2 weeks. It'll follow all the rules this time and be focused on Shiny Remoraid. Until then, happy reading and happy training.